Okay, so we're going to start on the five factors, five absorption factors, okay, that we want to cultivate, and that when they are perfected will lead us to have the first jhana and very deep concentration. So the first of these is called coarse engagement, or vitakka. If you've studied mind and mental factors, there's 4 unchangeable ones. This is one of them. So here, in this particular case, what it is it's a coarse kind of involvement with your meditation object. So it's the part of the mind that like uplifts the mind and puts it on the object. Okay? And then the second one, the first one was vitakka, the second one is vikara, or refined engagement. This is also one of the changeable mental factors. And so whereas the coarse engagement lifts up the mind and puts it on the object, the refined engagement keeps it there over a period of time. So they often make the analogy that coarse engagement is like ringing the bell, and then the refined engagement is the sound of the bell that comes afterwards. Okay? So something along that line. So let's say you're doing meditation on the breath, then your coarse engagement would get you on the breath, and your refined engagement would be really steady on the breath and would be able to see all the details and what's happening with each breath as it goes in and as it goes out. Or if you're meditating on the figure of the Buddha, you know, it would know all the details. The refined engagement would know all the details and get them, you know, in order and so on. So I know somebody's going to say, well, what's the difference between this and mindfulness? Okay. Right, I beat you to it. I knew you were going to ask that. I think all these mental factors work together. Sometimes when we talk about the mental factors, we try and divide them into nice, neat categories so that they don't overlap with each other. You know, but that's just our conceptual grasping mind that wants to divide up the pie so that there's no crumbs. But I think, you know, that when we're really talking about how the mind works, you know, there's so many different mental factors that are involved in a certain cognition, and they all, you know, they kind of help each other, and they're all there, you know, working together to do something. Okay? So I don't think we can, you know, divide up the functions so clearly, always. Okay. Then the third one is called rapture, or the Sanskrit word is piti. Yeah, and this is a very delighted kind of mind. You know, so when you have when your mind's really focused single-pointedly, they say that your mind is very delighted, very uplifted. It feels very happy. And so this is one of those mental factors that make it like that. This rapture has a certain quality of, it's not totally smooth. It's a little bit like, wow, this is really neat. You know, so at a certain point you have to kind of get over that. And then the next one is bliss, or sukha. And this is a very pleasant feeling, very joyous feeling. It's much more steady than rapture, okay? So much more steady, very blissful, very, because the mind is so peaceful, you know, and not like filled with all of our usual berserky thoughts and worries and anxiety. So a real sense of peace in the mind. And then the last factor is called one-pointedness. And this mental factor kind of unifies the mind. It brings all the other mental factors together on the object. Okay? So that's just in brief. We'll talk about them a little bit more as the days go on. But it gives you some idea of the kinds of things that we need to strengthen in our own meditation. You know? And so you know, if you feel blissful in your meditation, it's not bad. You know, don't get rid of it. Stay with it, okay? Just don't cling to it. But, you know, when you have deep states of concentration, the mind should feel very blissful. Yeah? And so it's something to cultivate, you know, but it's not the kind of bliss or delight or happiness that we get from sense objects, you know, because any kind of pleasure for sense objects, you know, the mind usually has a lot of anxiety, you know, how am I ever going to get this again? It's so good now, maybe I'm going to lose it, then what am I going to do if I lose it and it goes away? What's going to happen if somebody takes the object I'm attached to, or maybe there's something better, or, you know, so our usual sense pleasure, happiness, it's really quite agitated, and it's often, like I said, very filled with worry and fear and anxiety about losing it. But this kind of delight and bliss and joy that comes in concentration is much smoother. The mind's very quiet. So it just stays in this kind of delighted, peaceful state. Sounds good, huh? Yeah?
Well, how would that feel different in the mind? Maybe, you know, sometimes doing deity meditation, when you get really concentrated either as the deity or with the visualization, there's that great feeling of kind of happiness and, no, it's not a...
Yeah.
Is that similar to that?
Yeah, I think it must be going in that direction. Yeah, when you're meditating and you feel some happiness there, or some joy, it's definitely a different kind of happiness than your sense pleasure delight, isn't it? Yeah, so that means you're going in that direction. You're increasing that mental factor. Yeah. Oh, it's ekagati. Ekagati. One of my glasses. Ekagata. Eka means one. So, ekagata. And the bliss, sukha, you know, when they talk about Amitabha's Pure Land, the land of great bliss, it's sukhavati. So it's the same sukha.